It is time. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to stand up. It's time for Christians to come together, to share their testimony, inspire hope, and to join their brothers and sisters as we answer the call. It's time to wake up the lions. And we have a lioness with us today, folks. She's written a fantastic book. She's the author of Among the Stars. Please welcome to the show, Denise Clanin. Denise, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, not at all. It's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story about your book and the whole nine yards. As we get going, tell everybody, who is Denise Clanin? What are you about? And what brings you here today?
I just completed my first book, my debut novel, Among the Stars, which is a sweet contemporary romance that takes place in North Idaho, where my husband and I moved about 4 years ago. I guess our family and we decided to make a change from living in Southern California to Idaho, and through that process, we've gone through a tremendous amount of change. Also, I guess my own personal life with us having two kids during our course of the 4 years after moving here. I've had to transition my career from full-time accounting to now stay-at-home mom and author as well. And so we've just gone through so much change, and it's been just crazy to just see just how much I guess God has worked in our life from when before we were living in Southern California to now.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine Southern California to Idaho is a big change.
Oh yeah, it's just the seasons, the culture, very different.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you mentioned, that, kind of how God's at work in your life. That's one of the things that we talk about here is how has God impacted your life, along the way. And I know that you've got, a story of some things that you went through. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that? Share that with everybody's listening?
Yes. So I guess one of the biggest challenges that I've gone through has been just with my brother. I had an older brother. He was unfortunately diagnosed with a chronic medical condition when he was 11 years old, and I was 2 years younger, so I was 9 years old. He had a disorder called NF2 that was essentially a disorder that caused tumors to grow throughout his body. And there's currently no cure for it. It is usually it's genetic, but his was a mutation. And so just over the course of from 11 years old onward, my family and I had to watch him as he kind of suffered through the symptoms where he lost his ability to hear, speak, and eventually and see well. And eventually he did, yeah, completely lose his ability to hear. And we we were very blessed to have a supportive family and friend circle that was supporting us through those hard times. My brother did have a pretty normal childhood and adolescence, but it was really the early adulthood when his condition worsened, and that was when we really had to lean onto God's greater understanding, because we couldn't see the outcome, what was going to happen as a result of this, and so we just really had to trust God throughout the uncertainty. And we were very thankful to have the time we did with my brother. He did pass away
Hmm.
well, he was 29. I was 27. So he was almost 30. And after that, even though we are very saddened that he's no longer with us, we do see the legacy he left behind with all the friends and family that he's connected with. He's always been a very positive, uplifting person. And so he just had this enormous, I guess, connection with just a, a pretty sizable group of people. And it was just amazing to see the connections he's made during his life.
Wow, I'm sorry for your loss. I really, really am. I mean, I can't put into words that kind of thing, and I can't imagine what you had to go through.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, no. Now, did that? Um, how did that impact you in terms of your faith and that kind of thing? Was it something you were able to lean on, or did it cause you to question it?
for me, I was confused about why my brother was going through the suffering that he did. Um, but I wasn't in doubt of God's work. I knew that he was using this for some greater purpose that I couldn't see. So even though I didn't have the answers and I was confused, I wasn't doubting that God wasn't at work. I always trusted him.
Yeah, no, and that's strong. Um, no, was your brother? in the faith, so to speak?
Yes, he and my parents, all four of us, we had a strong Christian upbringing, so that was something that we did connected through prayer and just yeah, general faith that we had in common.
Nice. Did that help him at all, do you think, when he was going through what he was going through?
I think it definitely did, because I mean, having to lose all those abilities, I think it definitely took a toll on him and just being unsure of why he was going through that suffering. But he did trust God even with the losing those abilities.
I hear you. Now, it's really hard to quantify, obviously, when you go through something like that from your own standpoint, but how did that, or so far, how has that impacted you, or changed you at all, or made you think about things differently?
I think at the time, obviously not knowing what was going to come about this, why was my brother suffering, I was kind of impatient, I understandably so, just what was the result of this? Why was he going through this suffering? And now, after it's been almost 6 years since he's passed, I am able to see some of the work that God has done through even the hardship, even though I know God does not cause any of this hardship himself, but him allowing it to happen, I can see that there have been some blessings that have like later happened that I didn't know at the time. Like our ability to move up to North Idaho and me being able to write a book. That all those things I wouldn't have been able to happen if I hadn't learned some of the lessons I learned with my brother when he was still alive.
Yeah, I hear you. You writing the book, was that something that you had thought of earlier, and prior to these things happening with your brother, or did that come after?
So the story itself actually stemmed from a creative writing prompt. I was in a college creative writing class, and it was essentially just a mystery romance I was playing around with. And I didn't really touch it after that college class. But after, I guess, over 10 years later, after moving to Idaho, I revisited the story and I had made some pretty sizable changes to it and figured, like, why don't I just write a book? Writing's always been a very it's always been a pastime of mine growing up. I've always loved writing, but I've never published anything. So I just thought like now is the time. At that time, it was a year and a half ago. We just at that time only had one child. So it was like, okay, we're between, child's one and two. And so this is the time to do it. Otherwise, having limited free time when you have more than one kid, you gotta take advantage of the time you do have. So then I went ahead and yeah, edited the story. I had only written a few chapters before, so I finished it and allowed myself the kind of writing as I felt inspired. And before I knew it, I completed a novel.
Wow, okay. All right. I wasn't sure if that had anything to do with, with your brother and everything that, he had gone through. Did that impact that at all?
Yes, the theme, or yes, some of the themes of the story, Among the Stars, do deal with death and grieving, and that is something that I can relate to in my personal experience with my brother. The main character in the book, Natalie, loses her father, and she has to come to terms with grieving as she learns, yeah, allowing herself that process with loss. That it's okay to allow yourself to grieve and to figure out what the next chapter of your life is supposed to look like. And I can relate to her in my own personal experience with losing my brother. So I think having that personal connection to the story also made it more relatable. And I can also connect with people who have also dealt with loss in their lives.
Yeah, nice. No, I like that. What do you think your brother would have thought of the book?
He would have loved some of the. I have little Easter egg references to some of his hobbies and interest in there. I think he would have loved those references, as well as other little, I guess, references to some of our family and friends that we're close with. He would have loved that. Absolutely. He always did believe and just he had a very like very kind of infectious personality in terms of like getting people excited about whatever activity or hobby he was interested in. And
Hmm.
so I think he like would have definitely wanted me to kind of pursue my dream and encourage other people to yeah, to get excited about the story. So I think he would have been proud.
Nice. Did he know it all? Anything about it at all before he passed, or did it not come to fruition until after that?
He knew I took a creative writing class in college, but I don't think he knew the story that I had written in that class.
Okay. Well, he knows now, right?
Yeah.
For sure. That's awesome. All right. So tell us a little bit more about the book without giving it away, because I know you don't want to give away the secret sauce of the book. If people want to know the story, they can buy it. But, tell us just a little bit about what can we expect to encounter, and maybe what can we expect to get out of it when we buy it and read it and take a look at it.
So, Story is a sweet contemporary romance. It takes place in North Idaho, where we live, and it has a mystery subplot dealing with about the events of the main character Natalie's father's death. So there is some mystery and suspense in there, and then the overall story is a romance, and it does talk have themes about nostalgia and humor, and about reconnecting with loved ones and family friends. In this particular story, it follows Natalie and her childhood friend Justin, who she reconnects with after 13 years of separation, right after her father died. And she moves away from North Idaho and then returns later on in the story. And so, yeah, so the story is very much about kind of emphasizing connection and just I guess, necessity of having community in our lives.
Great. Okay, interesting. Now the romance mystery. I mean, I'm not sure. I've written before, but I've written nonfiction. So the fiction area is, I mean, wildly untapped, and I really don't have hardly any knowledge about it. So maybe you can educate me. Is that a common combination to have, or is that somewhat unique?
I think it really depends on like some stories will kind of blur different subgenres. So I don't think it's as common as some other I guess subgenres, but I have seen other I guess mystery romances or cozy romances out there. I definitely think there is less of I guess in the normal, I guess, greater romance umbrella, they tend to be more on the spicier end, and that is not mine, my story. So I think we do need some more books that are not just, yeah, that do have some subtle Christian themes that are not just for the Christian audience, but that can appeal to those also, yeah, maybe who aren't just looking for Christian fiction, but people who want an inspirational message. And so that's what mine will give.
Nice. So is the book what you would consider to be faith-based in that way?
There are definitely faith-based themes in the story.
Okay.
I think it's overall more in the sweet contemporary romance genre, but there are definitely some uh, hints at themes or religious themes in there.
Got it. So we've got some religious themes, and we're sweet, not spicy. And that's the type of book that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Okay. I love the description. That's great. Okay, wonderful. What made you want to write this story this way? I mean, you wrote a story in creative writing, and that's great. But a lot of people write a lot of things. So what makes you take that story and say, I'm going to go write a full book about this and become a writer and get it published?
So I just always loved writing as a kid. I would write stories for myself, just taking characters that I kind of made, or when I was a child, I would have like kind of make believe stories about these characters. And so I always just loved kind of diving into a fictional world and kind of generating my own stories and character development. And so growing up, there was still that dream in the back of my mind, but I never got around to writing or even completing a book. I've only really written up to like a quarter of a book at a time. And so it was really after that college class, and really, I guess after moving to Idaho, when I realized that I still had that dream, that I wanted to write a story that wasn't just a feel-good romance or, having humor in there, which are all, I think, are still elements that are very engaging for storytelling. But I also wanted to have deeper themes in my book. I wanted to kind of dive into well, like the deeper themes of belonging with connection, but where we all kind of desire that deeper level of connection with other people, as well as the desire to be forgiven and have essentially a redemption arc, because that there are characters in the book that do have that kind of redemption arc.
Hmm.
And so I think it's very, I wanted to, yeah, to dive a little bit deeper than just, the beach read.
Nice. Nice. Does that redemption arc come from someplace on a personal level, or is that just something that you're attracted to that you wanted to write about?
I think not firsthand, but I have met some individuals in my life who had essentially no faith whatsoever. And I have seen them coming to a relationship with God. And I have seen that kind of change in individuals, and some people that I've come across, and it's just amazing to see somebody who's come from a completely different place, maybe even being making some not so great decisions in the past and being able to kind of grow from that and basically learning that, those people are not a lost cause, that no one's a lost cause, that we all, there's always hope to be found, and that no matter how broken we might seem, that there's always hope and we can always be restored. And that is a theme that I do touch on in this book.
Nice. I mean, that's a great theme. The redemption theme is something that I think everybody can at least identify with, and is attracted to on some level. Um, the Now the part about, being redeemed within your faith is that part of the book, or is that something that you've seen that led you to bring a redemption faith that's not in terms of faith into the book?
So I think in my book, I have met a few people who I guess when it comes to faith did come to knowing God and having that relationship started, who were probably like not believers earlier on in their life. And I think in my book it's a little bit more hinted at with the faith part, but it's also just about allowing yourself to be loved by other people, to kind of entering a relationship with other people, with family and friends. Family, you might have been estranged to, and now you're reconnecting. And that is something I have seen in some of my relatives who they weren't talking with each other at one point, and they did end up choosing to forgive one another, and now they're close again. So I have actually seen that in my family.
Nice. Nice. If you don't mind me asking you a couple more questions about the book, is that okay?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
great. In terms of the book, did you go ahead and did you self-publish this, or did you find a publisher and go through that?
So I did find an independent publisher or hybrid publisher.
Okay.
So it was the kind of the right, I guess, mix of kind of the flexibility for me to kind of write about these kind of themes, but with also the support with some of the distribution and marketing. Because with writing books, there's a lot to learn. It's a pretty sizable learning curve. So I'm very thankful to have the hybrid publisher that I had throughout this process.
Nice, nice. Do you want to tell us who the publisher was?
Oh, yes. They are Morgan Pierce Media and Publishing.
Oh, great. Okay. I mean, you can give a shout out to people on this show. It's okay.
Uh,
So now when you set out to say, hey, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to turn all of this into a book, right? Did you say, I want to go find a hybrid publisher? Or is that kind of where you ended up after looking at other options? How did that whole process work for you?
so I was very new, and I'm still pretty new with the publication process. I
Mhm.
had talked to a few other writers in the area. I was a part of a writers critique group, and they had kind of given me a brief description of like the different types of publishers out there, what to look out for. And at that point, I knew that I wanted something like more of a hybrid press, not a traditional publisher, because they tend to be, well, you have to get a literary agent to be represented, and then sometimes they tend to want to publish something that is going along with like pop culture and current trends, which I didn't want to have to like compromise any of my morals in my book just to sell copies. So I agreed, or I realized that the hybrid press was the way to go.
Nice. That was going to be my next question was your moral stance on what you wanted the book to be something you took into account? So it sounds like it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. And so you looked at all these other options. This is what you came up with. The Was the marketing piece a big decision making thing for you also?
The my publishers actually offer a few months of support with marketing, which is something that a lot of press, or I guess publishing press, don't offer. That usually you have to do the marketing on your own.
Hmm.
So it was for me a sigh of relief, or have yeah, sighing with relief that I didn't have to completely figure it out on my own, because having no experience in this in publication with books, all this was brand new for me.
Sure. Now, are you doing your own promotion also, or is it all just going through what the publisher's doing for you right now?
So I do have a publicist I'm working with currently, and but I've also been posting individual like I guess, posts or reels on Instagram and Facebook. So that has been my own personal, I guess, personal efforts. But my marketing team has been very supportive with like book signings and podcast interviews and just other ways to kind of get the word out about this book.
There you go. I was going to say, and obviously you're guesting on podcasts talking about it because you're here. So,
Yeah.
right. All right. Excellent. How many podcasts you been on?
It's sometimes I forget. It's hard to tell. I say somewhere around 10 uh at this point.
Okay. All right. What do you find to be like the easiest thing about being on a podcast promoting the book and the hardest thing about being on it?
Uh, I think the easiest thing is being able to talk about like things I really am passionate about, like my brother and my book are very it's a blessing to be able to share that with other people. Kind of my personal, my greater story, not just the book, but also like, yeah, how God has worked in my life. Um, I think definitely the hard part is sometimes having technical problems with the computer and scheduling. Just having now with two kids, it's like my free time is so limited, so trying to squeeze in time can be a challenge.
Sure. Well, I mean, congratulations on two kids as well, because I know that kind of came after the book, but also congratulations on the book and getting that all out. This is really,
Oh,
really cool. Good for you. The world needs more authors who care about what they're putting out, and you can tell that you really, really care deeply about what your product was.
yeah, thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
you're welcome. Let me go back a little bit. We were talking about your brother. Is there more to your brother's story that you want to make sure you get out, or did you cover it?
I think with my brother, he even though the story, well, I guess, or his struggles with NF2 have been were very challenging, and it was definitely there were some dark times. He was just a generally a very positive person, and his story I think is more of hope rather than a tragedy because of his faith in God and the way he used his free time, or I guess his time that he was on Earth for connection. That even though he wasn't with us as long as we would have liked, he really was proactive about gathering people together. He would host these video game parties at our house. Video games were always one of his many passions. He also loved music too, especially classic rock music. And so he was very good about bringing people together in community. And I think like his goal was to just yeah, to bring people together and to celebrate just his interests and passions. And he was just very contagious with that set kind of that zeal for life. And so that is kind of his legacy that he's left behind that I am trying to kind of live forward or pay it forward is trying to make my own connections and trying to kind of continue that legacy that he left behind with kind of encouraging people to come together even when we make mistakes because sometimes and actually a lot of times we mess up because we're human, we're essentially works in progress till our last breath, and so that means that sometimes we just need to forgive each other even when it's hard, and we shouldn't be holding grudges against each other. Instead, choose to make those connections, choose to reach out to someone that you haven't heard in a while, and that's something that my brother taught me, and I'm trying to I guess pay that forward and continue that legacy.
Nice, nice. So that's one of the reasons why you're coming on podcast too, is to continue to spread that story about your brother and
Yeah.
build his legacy.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. I think I'm understanding you a little bit better right now. And I like that. I appreciate you sharing the stuff that you're sharing today about this. What else should we know about your brother?
Um, so he was always very funny, had a very yeah, very infectious sense of humor. And it was sometimes I think looking back, actually a lot of the memories I have with him have involved humor in some way. And that is something that I guess I incorporated into my book as well, because I do think that laughter brings us together. We only have one life to live, and life can be short. And I really, I've been trying to kind of look for I guess silver linings or blessings, even in the most challenging of circumstances. And that's exactly what my brother did. And so now moving forward with our family, that's something that I want to continue doing and teaching our kids, just that there are always blessings to be found. Even if we don't like where we're at right now, like if we're in a challenging circumstance, there is always something to be thankful for and something that can bring a smile to our face. And just to be able to appreciate those blessings is something that my brother did teach me.
Nice. I love that. That's a message that gets lost, I think, with folks. You know, when people are so wrapped up in getting everything that they want and then in worrying about the things they don't get, that I think we all kind of forget to count our blessings and think about what we're grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like your brother was one remarkable guy.
He was, yes.
Yeah. What's your brother's name?
His name is Garrett.
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 Okay. All right. I just don't want to keep referring to him as your brother. I want to, call him by name. So that's great. Um, I love that. And I love that you're honoring him that so much. As we've talked, you've made several references to different things that are in the book. It sounds like your brother had a lot of small influences in little places in the book.
Yes, he did. And I know, so the story taking place in the kind of North Idaho setting, even though Garrett had never visited Idaho, something that my family and I did do together is we did have fishing trips. The characters in the book there is fishing involved out on the river. And that is something that I do remember as one of our fond, I guess, family memories is us going on fishing trips together.
Nice. That was something that he liked to do then.
Yes, he actually liked the video game part. He would bring his video games with him more than the fishing, but he still enjoyed it. He just always tried to bring his video games in there somehow.
Nice. Nice. Everybody's fishing. He's playing a video game. All right. Well, at least he's
Yeah.
being true to himself.
Yeah.
That's great. What video game did Garrett like?
He was really into Nintendo. He was very yeah, very good at all like the Mario Brother games, like Mario Kart. Yeah, very a lot better than I was. And we as a actually a lot of our family and friends, we did kind of honor Garrett through a charity race that we ran every year at back when I was in Southern California. And we called ourselves Team Garrett and we dressed up as video game characters from the Mario Brothers series and ran a 5K together. So yeah.
Wow, that's something. I mean, running a 5K is hard enough if you're not in character.
Oh yeah, it's it was a little challenging, but it was fun. It was great to see everyone kind of come together and just celebrate, yeah, my
Nice.
brother.
Which character were you?
I was Yoshi once, and then I think I was Daisy another time.
Yoshi. All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Okay, very, very cool. Um, Sounds wonderful. Sounds like it's a fantastic story. Um, what else do you want to tell us about the book? Like who is the book written for? Who's the reader that you're writing the book for that you hope gets the most out of it?
So I obviously I'm very thankful for anyone or any support, anyone who wants to pick up the book. I would say that the book is probably more toward women in their 20s, as the main characters are also women in their 20s. Um, but I wanted the story to be something that is accessible for those even who maybe aren't Christians, that it can be a story that has a powerful message, even for those in the church or out of the church, just people who are looking for a deeper meaning in life and looking for, or I guess, desiring connection with others, that it can be a story, or I guess those themes can connect with, or yeah, resonate with them as well.
Nice. Nice. Well, obviously, anybody who wants to hear a nice, sweet romance that's not spicy, that works, can pick up the book and read it. Now, you're talking about women that are in their 20s. I'm guessing that that's kind of based on you too.
I am unfortunately not 20 anymore. I wish I could say that. But yeah, I sometimes, I wrote the book, or I guess I wrote the prompt in my creative writing class when I was 20. But unfortunately, I am, yeah, no longer in that age range.
I would never. You look like you're 22 years old. I mean, I mean, seriously, I would have thought you were talking about yourself. So, all right. So, are you a character in the book?
No, I do not show up in the story. There are interests of mine that do pop up as little Easter eggs to myself, just like with references to some of my friends' is interest as well. But me as a character, I'm not in the book.
Nice. All right. All right. So, just a couple questions left. First, is there anything else about your brother about Garrett that you want to make sure everybody knows?
Um, I guess just when it comes to hope, that I know, yeah, that he kind of left a positive legacy behind, and that kind of inspires me. That even when I guess you don't know what's going to happen next, that I know God is working in our lives, and I was able to see that with my brother and with and Garrett and with the way he connected with other people, and now kind of giving me or his story, kind of encouraging me and my greater story of writing this book and now starting our family. I think I'm able to see how God has worked in my life, even during those doubtful times or really challenging times where I did have doubts. Uh,
Nice. Nice. Okay. Like I said, I have two left. All right.
okay.
Here's the here's the next to the last question. Um, what is there about the book that you want to make sure that everybody knows that we haven't talked about yet?
When it comes to the book, I just, I guess, want to, yeah, encourage anyone who's interested in a story about story of hope, as well as looking for those deeper themes of redemption, forgiveness, and second chances, that the story is provides those deeper themes, but it also does touch on nostalgia and humor, and it has those lighthearted themes as well. And basically, the story was something that just I came up with when in that class, and I at that time I really wanted to see more stories that were kind of positive and had maybe they did touch on people that were struggling and having some flaws, as we all have flaws, but I wanted to see a story that wasn't cynical or nihilistic on the bookshelf, or on the screen when I'm watching a movie. And so that was essentially my inspiration for the book is like write the book that you want to see on the bookshelf or the story that you want to see on the screen. Um, and that was where the story stemmed from. And that is why I was able to publish it, having that vision in mind.
Nice. Last question. Here we go. You have mentioned a couple of times, and even just now, talking about redemption, talking about second chances, talking about hope. Um, what would you say to the people who are out there that may read your book? Okay, especially after we talked about it so glowingly, and it sounds like it's a great book. I can't wait to read it myself. What would you say to the folks that are out there? They're Christians, they believe, but they're not quite as willing as you are to talk openly, about their faith and about, how it impacts them. Especially since, a lot of your themes are second chances and redemption and things like that. What would you say to those folks?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question
Oh,
exactly?
yeah, it's okay. I probably messed it up there, and I apologize. What would you say to the folks who aren't as open talking about their faith as you are? Especially you're sitting here talking today about it, and you're very openly talking about your faith and the influence it's had in your life. What would you say to those folks who are just a little maybe afraid to talk about their faith and let other people know how they feel?
I would definitely recommend being patient with yourself. I know that just the with the idea that we are works in progress till our last breath, that means that sometimes we just need to be patient with the waiting. That maybe right now you might not be in um, I guess, in the right mindset to share your story with other people, and that's completely okay. I think it's important to take time to kind of pray and self-reflect on kind of what you want out of life and your goals, and I guess also just giving yourself that grace that you would give other people, that we have, like all of us, like we all learn as we grow older, that we learn how we can, essentially improve ourselves. And so it's okay to give ourselves that grace, if we regret how we acted on a prior day, that it's okay to extend that forgiveness to ourselves. And just to be patient with yourself, because I know for my husband and I, before we even moved up to Idaho and started our family, we were in a waiting process, living in a one-bedroom apartment it was in San Diego, and we weren't sure when we would be able to start our family or, yeah, what the next few years of our life was going to look like. But then just in period of just a few months, that was when we essentially bought our house, in Idaho and moved up here. And before we knew it, we were or expecting our first child. So there was a lot of change that happened in such a short period of time. So I know even though there was a sizable waiting process or waiting period that God was still working in our life. So I do encourage anyone just who is struggling with sharing their story, just to be patient with themselves um, as they pray and self-reflect.
Okay. Because God always shows himself at some point, doesn't
Yes,
he? Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Author of Among the Stars, Denise Clanin. Denise, thank you for coming on here and, honoring your brother the way you have. I think that's just exceptional. Talking about your book, which uh, you stuck to your guns and you protected your morals and you wrote this awesome book. And I think a lot of people are going to want to read it. Thank you for coming on and talking about all this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Folks, this has been another episode of Wake Up the Lions. It's time. It's time for you to take your rightful place with your brothers and sisters and start talking about faith. And like Denise said, it may take you a minute. It may take you a little while. Give yourself a little bit of grace, but trust that God's going to take you where you got to go. He always comes through in the end. The word's always going to come out, and the world is ready for you, and you just need to believe it. Until next time.